we can help you in any way in your spiritual walk with God or on any spiritual question you might have. Please do not hesitate to call upon us. We've been looking for the past few months at the subject of marriage, a very important subject that we might understand not only the design that our Creator had when He instituted His relationship in the Garden of Eden, but that we might base it upon biblical principles that will make our marriage relationships not only fulfilling, but long-lasting, excellent examples for our children, for others, and to make them as close as we can to being what God designed it to be for the betterment of man and woman. Last week, we began looking at a lesson called the LoveDare. And what we are trying to do in these lessons is try to give you the need for love in our marriage, but to have the right kind of love, to understand what that means to have a foundation of love in marriage. And so we began last week by examining the love in a marriage, and we've been using 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8, and looking at different characteristics of love. Today, we begin with the characteristic of the subject of love, and that it is kind. And so we want love that is kind, and to do that, then we're going to have the proper attitude. We're going to have the proper attitude of understanding what it means to be kind. This word kind means to show oneself useful and to act benevolently. Again, it is an expression of acting on the interest on behalf of another. Gentleness, sensitive and tender, truth in love, not harsh. A person that's kind is the opposite of being harsh. He's not rude, he's not insensitive, he's kind, he's gentle. Excuse me. Helpful, meeting the needs of the moment. You know, in marriage, there's things that come up in our marriages where there are different needs of different situations. A person who is kind is going to meet the need in the best possible way in order to resolve the problem or to lessen the pain or the hurt. But whatever needs to be done, they're going to address it in a very kind, gentle, and helpful way. Willingness, not obstinate, reluctant, and stubborn, but cooperative and flexible. We look, again, this is talking about an attitude. We can't be stubborn and always want our way and always want things to go the way that we want. We have to be flexible in order that we might provide what's best and what's most needed for our mate in order to express the love that we have for them and in order to meet the need that they have at that particular time of the situation. And this is love in action. And to understand this, we want to read a parable in Luke chapter 10. Now again, talking is one thing, but acting is a very different thing. And so when we're kind, we want love in action. We want to demonstrate kindness by our actions. In Luke chapter 10, in verse number 30, we have the story of the Good Samaritan. We're going to begin reading in verse number 30. Then Jesus answered and said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, departed, leaving him for dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. Now a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and he saw him, had compassion on him. So he went to him, bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, and said, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. So which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And he said, he who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said, go and do thou likewise. Now notice in this parable of the Good Samaritan, there were 3 people who had the opportunity to help, and 3 people who normally we would think would help. A priest and a Levite were supposed to be people who served others. A priest was a servant of God that was serving the people, and a Levite was of the priestly tribe where God got the priest from. And yet these two supposedly religious people passed by and left the man for dead and never even offered to try to help his need. And yet this Samaritan, and if you know anything of the history of the Jews and Samaritans, they didn't like each other, they hated each other, and yet this Samaritan took this Jew who had been beaten and left for dead. He not only took care of his needs, he even went beyond what was necessary in order to be benevolent towards the person who had been beaten and left for dead. Again, when we're talking about kindness, we're talking about love in action. We're talking when we have the opportunity, when the situation arises, that we demonstrate and express the love that we have for our mate by gentleness, helpfulness, willingness, show ourselves to be benevolent, do whatever it takes in order to calm the fears of our mate and to take care of whatever need the situation that is present might need in order to take care of it. And so, again, we must develop this attitude and action of kindness. Where would you rate on kindness? If I were to ask your mate, if I were to ask your wife or your husband, are you a kind spouse? Do you express kindness in your relationship? What would your mate say? Would you be afraid of the answer your mate would say? Are you rude? Are you harsh? Are you not very sensitive to the needs and things that your wife or your husband may need in this relationship? Again, this is a quality that we must develop and work on to have the proper kindness in this relationship. Love does not envy. In Titus chapter 3, verse 3, for we ourselves were also once foolish, disobedient, deceived, serving various lusts and pleasures, living in malice and envy, hateful and hating one another. Love does not envy. What does that mean? It means to have a warmth of feeling for or against, move with envy, be jealous over. There is such a thing as justifiable jealousy. God had this jealousy for his children when he was their God and the children of Israel. In Exodus chapter 34, verse 14, and Deuteronomy 4, verse 24, he told them that he was a jealous God. What did he mean by that? He meant that they were his people. He was their God. That was a relationship that he wanted protected, that he wanted to have nurtured, and one that he wanted both parties to act in accordance with the proper conduct. And so he was jealous. That's not a bad thing. In marriage, we should be jealous for our mate. We should want no one else to be in that relationship but the two of us. When you ever involve a third party, except it be God, God should be involved in every marriage to make it a success. But if you enact a third party in your marriage, you're going to have problems, and you're going to have serious problems. And so we need not to be envious in our relationship with our mate. Envy is a root in selfishness and can infect the marriage in a very negative way. People who are selfish cannot really function in a marriage without inevitably causing a problem. And to envy is, maybe your mate has a better approach or has a better quality or a stronger quality in some characteristics than you do. And maybe they handle things better than you do. Well, we shouldn't be envious of that. We should be grateful for that because that adds to the stability of the relationship. Let us not be envious because our mate may have a quality or ability that is better than ours. Then be thankful for that. Praise her for that. Praise him for that. And let it allow your marriage and your relationship to become stronger, more committed, and more loving, and more fulfilling. And so don't be envious of the ability or the talent or the way that maybe your mate would handle a situation better than you would. Just be thankful for that. Love celebrates the success of one mate and rejoices in their happiness and support it. We should never be envious if our mate has some good fortune happen to them, or if something happens to them that benefits them, it may not benefit us indirectly. We should not be envious of that. We should not be jealous of that. We should be happy. We should be rejoicing. Why? You know, remember something I told you in the very beginning of these lessons. When you become a married couple, when you join in this relationship and you become man and wife, you're no longer two, but you're one. And whatever affects one is going to affect the other one. So if one has success, we need to be happy about that because that's going to bring success to us. If one has something to rejoice over, then we ought to rejoice with them. We should not be envious of their good fortune or whatever it might be that they were able to enjoy. We ought to be grateful, thankful, and we ought to be supportive. And so if you want a strong, loving relationship, then don't put envy and jealousy in it. If you do, you're going to destroy the happiness. You're going to destroy the respect that one has for the other. And so we need to be supportive, and we need to rejoice over the happiness and the good fortune of either mate in the relationship. Are you envious of your mate? Maybe your wife handles stress better. Maybe she's better at managing money. Maybe she's better at understanding problems when they come up and how to handle them. And maybe she handles them in ways that maybe is a little better than you do. Don't be envious of that. Don't be jealous of that. Be thankful for that and praise her for that and praise him for that in order that it makes your life together better. Love does not parade itself. In 2 Corinthians 10:18, for not he who commends himself is approved, but whom the Lord commends. Love does not parade itself. Now again, what are we talking about? Well, this comes from the word preteros, which is vainglorious, a braggart. Okay, a braggart. We understand what that is. That's somebody that brags about themselves. Okay? Barnes says this spirit proceeds from the ideal of superiority over others and is connected with the feeling of contempt and disregard for them. We need to be very careful that we don't overwhelm our mate by thinking that we're superior. This is a false concept that many of the the feminist movement who denounce marriage because they think it's a servitude for the woman, and they think it's demeaning to her, demeans her as a woman, doesn't let her express herself freely, and it suppresses her growth, and all of that is just debunked if you study the Bible, and if you understand that the role of a wife and the role of a mother is a very glorious position, and one that God gives a lot of thought to, and one that God says can bring a lot of happiness into the relationship. So we have to be careful that we think because we're a man that we're superior to our wives, or because we're men that we should have more say and that we should have and disregard what she thinks or how she feels because we're the head of the house. It's true, we're the head of the house and we're the head of the home. We have that authority given to us by God, 1 Corinthians 11, verse 3. But any man that does not consider his wife in any decision that he makes is a fool. Anyone that does not consider the thoughts and the input of their mate is not demonstrating love, and is not demonstrating concern and expressing it in a way to demonstrate that her needs and her desires are something that should be considered in any decision that's made. Bragging yields bad fruit. It is dishonoring and respectful. If we're always bragging about ourselves and we're putting our mate down and we're trying to exalt ourselves by putting them down, we're going to destroy happiness in the marriage. We're also going to destroy respect. Our mate's going to lose respect for us, and they're going to feel belittled, and they're going to feel be taken for granted, and they're going to feel that they really have nothing to add to the relationship, but they're just being used. And again, all of those things are going to diminish the love that should exist in a marriage, is going to diminish the respect that should be between men and women in marriage, and man and wife, and is going to erode that stability of the foundation to make us be able to build good, lasting, happy, and strong marriages. And so we're going to have to be very careful that we don't, excuse me, that we don't try to in any way that we don't try to destroy the relationship by our conduct, by being a braggart or parading himself. Love doesn't say, look at me, but one rather exalts their mate above themselves. In Philippians chapter 2, this principle is taught by the Apostle Paul in Philippians chapter 2 and verse number 3. Philippians 2, verse number 3. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but lowliness of mind. Let each esteem others better than themselves. You see, we want to exalt our mate. We don't want to promote ourselves. We want to promote them. We want to exalt them. We want to lift them up. We want to look to their needs above our own. Selfishness is not compatible in a marriage. When selfishness exists, then there's going to be problems. When the marriage is one-sided, is tilted more for the husband or for the wife, it's going to cause inevitably problems. And so we need to understand that love doesn't say it's all about you. It's not all about you in marriage, it's about both of you. And not either person is not going to get everything they want. Neither should they desire it. They should want to do what's best for both. And sometimes that goes back to what we stated earlier, that you need to be flexible. And you need to be kind in order sometimes to let things go maybe in a way that's contrary to what you think is best, but is more in line with what your mate thinks, in order to demonstrate the love that you have for them and to promote goodwill within the marriage. And so love does not parade itself. It does not focus ourselves on us. Any marriage that focuses solely upon one party over the other is inevitably not going to be very happy, not going to be very fulfilling. And there's going to be a loss of love and respect, and that's going to cause problems in the marriage. Love is not puffed up. 1 Peter 5, likewise you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. This all of you, be submissive to one another, be clothed with humility, for God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Notice, be clothed with humility. This word, puffed up, in the primary sense of blowing, to inflate, to make proud, to be haughty, to be arrogant. Again, that's somebody that elevates themselves at the expense of somebody else. When we're haughty, or when we're puffed up, then we try to exalt ourselves and puff ourselves up at the expense of putting the other party down. Love causes one to push aside pride and replace it with humility. We should always be willingly, women should be able to submit to their wives, but the wife should see the love that their husband has to her because of the way that they treat her, and that they're willing to do things the way that they want in order to promote goodwill and love and respect within the marriage. And so we need to push aside pride, and we need to, again, center on being humble and not being haughty or have an inflated opinion of ourselves. Love motivates the willingness to be sacrificial, to work with their mate, cooperate with them, honor them. You see, love motivates the willingness to be sacrificial. I want to give of myself. I want to give in this relationship. I want to give things to my mate in order to demonstrate and express the love that I have for them. And I'm willing to sacrifice even some things maybe that I need if I can fulfill her needs. And I'm willing to sacrifice things that maybe I think might be better in order that it would make her more happy, make her feel more secure, more content. And I'm willing to do that because of the love that I have for her. Again, any person that goes into marriage thinking it's going to be all one way, that they're going to get everything they want, is going to be sadly depressed, and going to be, he's in for, either one, the man or the wife, is in for a real jolt, because that's not going to happen. Marriage is a partnership. You know, I've often heard marriage described 50-50. Well, it's not 50-50. It's 100-100. Both of you've got to put everything in it. And your marriage is only going to be as good as what you put in it. And it's only going to be as good as you both work together for the betterment of the other. When each party is putting the other ahead of themselves, that's going to work. That's going to strengthen the relationship. That's going to strengthen the feelings, the emotion, the love, the respect. The harmonious relationship will become better over time when each one is trying to look to the needs of the other above themselves, because that is a way of expressing the love that you have for your mate. That is a way of you expressing, not just in words, but in action, that you love your mate when you're working with them to honor them, to cooperate with them, to make things be harmonious and peaceful. Do you show the proper respect for your mate? Man, do you put your mate down in front of other people in order to exalt yourself? Do you do that in a way that you humiliate her, that you belittle her in front of others in order to puff yourself up or to make yourself look bigger than you really are? Any man that does that's a fool. Any man that does that is destroying the love and respect within that relationship, and it's going to come back to haunt them. And so we need not to parade ourselves. We need not to be haughty, and we need not to put everything around me. And we need to look to the needs and the things of our mate in order to show that we love them. Love does not behave rudely. Proverbs 18:13, he who answers a matter before he hears it is folly and shame to him. We need to be careful not to be rude to our mate. That means to act unbecomingly. Thayer says that means to act unbecomingly, to act in a way that is not conducive in the relationship, nor is it conducive to bring good feelings into a marriage. To be rude is to act in such a way as to embarrass our mate or irritate them. Sarcastic quips, poor table manners, loud and obnoxious behavior, things that are not done while you're dating. If you remember when you dated your mate, you held the door open, you acted on your best behavior, you just couldn't be kinder, you couldn't be more considerate, you couldn't be more concerned about whatever they needed. Well, what happened after you exchanged vows and you put rings on your fingers? All that, now that you've got her, now you can just disregard all that and throw it away. Any man and woman that does that's a fool. And so we need to understand that we need to not behave rudely. We need to be considerate. We need not to do things that irritate our mate. If you have a bad habit and it bothers your mate, you should work to try to correct it. Or if your mate asks you not to do certain things, don't be so boggart that you're going to do it because you're the head of the house and you're going to do whatever you want, because when you do that, you're going to erode the love that she has for you. You're going to erode the respect she has for you. And so we've got to be careful that we don't act rude or sarcastically in a way that we are obnoxious in our behavior and we embarrass our mate in front of other people. She's embarrassed or he's embarrassed because of our behavior. That does not have a good reflection on our marriage, nor does it help the respect that the other party has for the other one. It demonstrates a lack of respect. When we're rude to our mate, it demonstrates a lack of respect. When we're obnoxious, when our behavior is rude, then we are not demonstrating proper love that we should have for our mate. Not only that, we're also insulting ourselves. When you belittle and you put your mate down, you've insulted yourself because you chose her. She chose you. So if you go and try to belittle them and irritate them, and you're not considerate and you just use bad behavior because you can, then you're not really showing great wisdom, and that's going to come back to hurt the relationship. How does your spouse feel about the way you speak and act around them? Do you speak around them and act around them in a way that expresses love, concern, compassion, deep feeling emotion, or are you not very considerate? And are you very quick? And are you sarcastic? And are you rude? And when you are destroying the love within the marriage. You're destroying the respect. And that's going to have an adverse effect on the happiness and the contentment in the marriage. Love does not seek its own. Philippians 2, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each one esteem others better than himself. Let each one of you look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Seeketh not its own. is in its own interest. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 24, it talks about that. It talks about not placing our needs above the needs of our mate. Our decisions are motivated by either a love for God, a love for our spouse, or a love for ourselves. However somebody treats somebody in a marriage is what they put more emphasis on. If I love myself more than I love my mate, then I'm going to look to my own needs. I'm going to do what I want, and she's just going to have to go along. That doesn't demonstrate love, it doesn't demonstrate respect, and it doesn't show consideration. And what it does is going to erode the respect that they have for me. It's going to erode the love that they have for me. It's not going to make it very fulfilling, and it's not going to make it very happy. And what that's going to do is going to cause a rift in the relationship, and it's going to cause tension and strife, and it's going to become very uneasy and very unhappy. And again, it has to do that we want our own way. Any marriage that's centered upon one person over the other is doomed to have problems. You've got to remember, you are a partnership. You are in this together, and you have to look out for each other's interests. And as we said earlier, when both parties look for the interest of the other person ahead of themselves, that's going to be a strong, happy, contented relationship. But whenever anybody makes it one-sided, where they want what they want at the expense of their mate, that's going to erode love and respect, and that's going to hurt the relationship. Do we put our interests, wants, and desires ahead of things needed and wanted by our spouse? If we do, then we're not demonstrating love, we're not showing respect, we're not showing concern, and we're not putting their interest above our own. And any man or woman in a relationship that thinks it all revolves around them is doomed to fail and to be unhappy, to not be very contented, and is going to destroy love and respect. And all the characteristics we've looked at today, you're not born with these things. You have to develop them. You've got to work on them. And when you're in a marriage, it's not, remember something I told you in the very beginning. The day that you take a mate, when you take a husband, you take a wife, when you say I do, and the preacher pronounces you husband and wife, it's no longer I, it's no longer me, it's we, it's our. It's all about the both of you. What affects one affects both of you. And if you're jealous, and if you're self-centered, and if you're haughty, and if you always got to get your way, and you're not considerate of what your mate needs or what she wants or what they want, then you're doomed to have a very unhappy relationship. Let me tell you something in closing this morning. There's nothing wrong with marriage. Marriage is an honorable estate. It's a good estate. But the problem with marriage is not the institution. The problem is the people that get in it. They get in it with unrealistic understandings, unrealistic ideals, and then they don't work together and they don't work for the good of the other person. Then it's going to inevitably have problems. And sadly, that's why 50% of marriages fail. And that's why infidelity and adultery are such a problem, because of the way a person is treated. Sometimes they look for a solution that's not a solution, it's another problem, because they're so unhappy in their relationship. If you and I would practice the principles that the Bible discusses and shows in this relationship, it will make marriage more stable, it will make it more happy, it will make it more fulfilling, and you won't want to look for anything else because you'll be very contented in what you have. And so, let us look to the one who created this institution. He knows about it better than anyone else. And if we follow his divine principles, then we'll have a lasting, loving, fulfilling, contented relationship.